Zimbabwe presidential hopefuls are filing their papers today before so-called nomination court. These include incumbent Emmerson Mnangagwa, who is also the leader of the ruling ZANU-PF, the leader of Citizens Coalition for Change, Nelson Chamisa, and the former minister Xavier Kasukuwere will be contesting the presidential election for the first time. Kasukuwere is a former ZANU-PF member who was part of the late former President Robert Mugabe's cabinet and lost his position after Mugabe was forced out of office by the military. Kasukuwere says that he wants to bring change to Zimbabwe. So for this and more, we're joined by SABC News International editor Sophie Mokoena. Good afternoon. Walk us through the importance of this process in relation to sensitizing voters with elections around the corner.
Any event that is related to elections ahead of elections, that's help in terms of ensuring that you remind the voters that you are going to elections. And therefore, looking at the reaction on social media, different broadcasters and online, you can see Zimbabwe is trending, and the three names are trending because of this process. Today, it is the last day. They have what they call nomination court. In South Africa, we have what we call the electoral court. And therefore, these candidates who want to contest the elections have submitted their documents to that nomination court. At 2 o'clock, the president of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, visited the nomination court. You know that he knew that you have journalists there, and therefore it is time for photo op, and it's part of campaigning. And therefore it does help because today the Zimbabweans will be just talking about this process and dissecting the candidates. And therefore it is an important process or sign that indeed Zimbabwe is about to have those elections. And you know, always the presidential election does evoke some strong views from different people.
Absolutely. So based on who to date has made their way to the nominations court, when are we likely to know who made it and who will be on the ballot?
After 4 p.m. this afternoon, we are likely to have information in terms of that process. But already it looks like many who have submitted their documents, the court has accepted the documents. I think of interest is this former minister who was part of President Robert Mugabe's cabinet. You know, they fled the country after the coup or the change of government by the military, and they didn't return back to the country even if there was an opportunity after the elections where Mnangagwa was elected as the president of Zimbabwe. And this time around, perhaps they feel that time has come for them to go back home and perhaps to make a change if they do, if they get endorsement. But also you still have Professor Jonathan Moyo, who is not part of people who will be contesting, one of the former ministers, but he's quite vocal. We spoke to him last week. And when I asked him about this former minister, he said to me at that time that he doesn't have much to say because he hasn't officially submitted his documents or made a public statement. But he pointed out that it is the right of all Zimbabweans to decide whether they want to contest elections or not. And therefore, I think the big story is Xavier.
Well, speaking of the former minister now entering the race, what effect will this have in terms of performance of the different political parties that have already been there?
Well, some people believe that this is going to divide the ZANU-PF votes. Others believe that it will be young people who have no baggage, either with the SABC or ZANU-PF, who would be rallying behind him. Because when you look at what transpired in Zambia, you find a situation where the young people who didn't belong to any of the parties did mobilize. And today we have Hishelema as the president. The same with Lesotho. It was young people who really went out there to ensure that they elect the current party the party that decided to present the current prime minister. Kenya, it's the same thing. The voice and the votes from young people did propel William Ruto to victory. Now, it is not clear whether in Zimbabwe you will have a similar situation, because most of young people in Zimbabwe have left the country. They are outside the country because of the economic challenges in that country. But you still have quite a number of young people who can change or have impact in terms of the outcome of the elections. But the very same group also, some of them are behind Nelson Chamisa because he is also young. And you also then have the young people who are diehards supporters of ZANU-PF. So we don't know, but I think it will have an impact if he is on the ballot. And it's not clear what impact will this have on CCC, because it has got a different following and supporter base. But with ZANU-PF, this is someone who was part of the leadership of ZANU-PF, was part of the inner circles of ZANU-PF. And therefore you can think, for example, in South Africa, a person like Malema, will he bring a dent to the DA? Not at all. But to PAC, to AZAPO, or to the ANC, he does, because of his background in terms of parties that are mainly supported by Africans. And therefore you now have a similar situation in Zimbabwe. But you still have these two real front runners, that is Emmerson Mnangagwa and Nelson Chamisa. But we'll be speaking to them in the days to come. All of them. It's not only the three, you have some, but others I can't see how they are going to make a serious dent. But these three are really, really people to watch. And if you know the politics of Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe is already trending today.
No, absolutely. I think just as we wrap up the conclusion, perhaps you could speak to when the candidates are now officially going to launch their campaigns. And given what is at stake, what's the impact of these elections? What impact will these elections have on the SADC region?
Well, I think many have started already. I mean, Zimbabwe is trending every day because of the elections. Mnangagwa is trending every day. Chamisa is trending every day. And the new candidate now, or the person who has presented himself, Xavier, is trending every day. So I think informally they've started, but the official launch of these campaigns, we expect this weekend to be very, very hectic in Zimbabwe, going forward every day, starting from tomorrow, I must say.
Let's continue to monitor developments as it unfolds. Thank you very much to SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena to give us an update what's happening today. Presidential hopefuls in Zimbabwe finding their papers before a so-called nomination court. Of course, this is ahead of elections come August this year.